I'm 82 years old, and I need to say something I've never said out loud before. Not to my kids, not to my doctor, not to the priest I see every Sunday morning. I've said it in my head maybe 10,000 times. In the car, in the shower, at 3 in the morning when sleep doesn't come easy anymore, and the house is so quiet it almost hurts. But I've never said it out loud. So here it is. I had a woman who loved me. Truly, completely. The kind of way you read about and think people are exaggerating. And I didn't love her back the right way. Not because I didn't feel it. I felt it every single day. But feeling something and showing something, those are two very different things. And I learned that difference about 40 years too late. I grew up hard, real hard. The kind of childhood where you learn fast that softness gets you hurt, where you keep your chin up and your mouth shut, and you don't let anyone see what's going on inside you. That was survival where I came from. The problem is, I carried that into my marriage, and it cost me everything that actually mattered. I'm not telling you this so you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because you're still young enough to do something about it. I wasn't. I want you to understand who's talking to you right now. I'm not some therapist sitting in a clean office telling you how relationships are supposed to work. I've never read a self-help book in my life. Wouldn't even know where to start with one. I'm a man who grew up in a 2-room house in rural Pennsylvania with 5 brothers and a father who worked the coal mines 6 days a week. A man who by the time he was 11 years old had already learned that crying was a luxury we couldn't afford. My father never once told me he loved me. Not once in his entire life. And I don't say that with bitterness anymore. I just say it so you understand the blueprint I was handed. I went to work at 16, helped support the family before I even had a chance to figure out who I was. Served 2 years in the Army, came back quieter than I left. By the time I met Ruth, I was 24 years old, and I had spent nearly a decade learning how to need nobody. You think that's strength. When you're young, you really do think that's strength. I'm 82 now. I've buried my mother, my father, 2 brothers, and 3 close friends. I've had 1 heart surgery and more sleepless nights than I can count. And I'm telling you, from the other side of all of it, that kind of strength is just fear with better posture. That's all it ever was. Ruth came into my life like something I hadn't planned for and didn't know how to handle. She was 22. I was 24. We met at a church social, which is funny because neither of us was particularly religious. We both just showed up that night because a friend dragged us there, and the alternative was sitting alone at home. She laughed at everything, not in a nervous way, in a way that made you feel like the world was genuinely funnier than you'd been giving it credit for. First time I made her laugh, really laugh, doubled over, hand on my arm, I thought, oh, this is trouble. And I was right. We dated for 2 years. Got married in 1966 in a small ceremony. 30 people, maybe. Her mother cried. My father shook my hand. And from the outside, we looked like exactly what we were supposed to be. But here's what nobody saw. On our wedding night, Ruth took my face in her hands and said, "Eddie, I just need you to let me in. That's all I'm asking. Just let me in." I smiled. I kissed her, I said, "You're already in." But I was lying. Not on purpose. I genuinely believed it. I didn't understand yet that there were rooms inside me I had locked so long ago I'd forgotten they existed. Ruth spent 15 years knocking on those doors, and I spent 15 years pretending I couldn't hear her. I've had a lot of years to think about where it went wrong. Not just the big moments, the arguments, the silences, the night she finally stopped trying, but the small ones, the everyday ones, the ones that didn't look like mistakes when I was making them. Here's what I know now. The first thing, silence is not neutral. I used to think that keeping quiet was keeping the peace, that if I didn't say the wrong thing, I wasn't doing damage. But silence has weight, and when you pour enough of it into a marriage, day after day, year after year, it becomes a wall. And one morning your wife looks at you across the breakfast table and realizes she doesn't know who you are anymore. And the hardest part is, she's right. The second thing, being a good provider is not the same as being a good husband. I worked hard my entire life, never missed a bill, never left my family wanting for anything material. I thought that was love. I thought showing up with a paycheck was showing up. Ruth needed me to show up differently. She needed me to sit down, put the paper away, look her in the eyes, and ask how she was actually doing. I did that maybe a dozen times in 30 years. The third thing, the small moments are the whole thing. I was always waiting for the right occasion to be tender. Anniversary dinners, birthdays. I thought love was something you performed on special days. But Ruth didn't need grand gestures. She needed me to reach over and hold her hand on a Tuesday afternoon for no reason at all. I have so many Tuesdays I want back. The fourth thing, when someone tells you what they need, believe them the first time. Ruth told me she felt lonely inside our marriage. Not once, not twice. I'd nod, I'd say I understood. Then I'd go right back to being exactly who I'd always been. I thought she was exaggerating. I thought she'd adjust. She wasn't, and she didn't. The fifth thing, love does not maintain itself. I think I believed, somewhere underneath everything, that because we'd chosen each other, the choosing was done. That love was a destination you arrived at and then stayed in. It isn't. It's a thing you have to keep doing, every single day, with your words, your attention, your willingness to be uncomfortable. I stopped doing it, slowly, without even noticing. And by the time I noticed, Ruth had grown so tired of waiting, she'd quietly made peace with being alone inside a marriage. That's the one that stays with me most. She was alone, right there beside me, alone. Ruth left on a Wednesday morning in 1981. She didn't slam doors. She didn't scream. That wasn't Ruth. She just came downstairs with one suitcase. One, after 15 years. Set it by the front door and stood in the kitchen doorway watching me drink my coffee. I looked up. She said, "I've loved you as long as I know how to. I don't have anything left." And I nodded. I actually nodded, like she just told me the weather. I don't know what was wrong with me. I don't know if it was shock or fear or just that lifetime of trained silence finally swallowing me whole at the worst possible moment. But I sat there at that kitchen table, the most important person in my life standing in that doorway, and I said absolutely nothing. She waited. I know she waited. Because Ruth, even then, even after everything, was still hoping I'd finally be the man she'd always believed I could be. I wasn't. She picked up her suitcase, walked to the door, paused with her hand on the frame. She didn't look back. That was the moment, right there. That was the moment I have replayed in my mind almost every day for over 40 years. Her hand on that door frame, the way the morning light came through the window, the sound of her footsteps on the porch, and my own silence, sitting there like a stone in the middle of the room. We finalized the divorce that winter. She remarried in 1984. I heard he was a kind man, quiet in a gentle way, not a broken way. I heard she was happy. I'm glad. I mean that completely. But I'll tell you something I've never admitted to anyone. For years after she left, I used to drive past the old house. Just slow down, look at the windows. Remember what it felt like when there was someone inside who was trying to love me. And I'd think, why couldn't I just let her? She wasn't asking for the moon. She was asking for me, the real me, the one underneath all that armor I'd been wearing since I was 11 years old in a 2-room house in Pennsylvania. She just wanted me to open the door, and I never did. That's not a dramatic tragedy. There's no single villain, no catastrophic moment anyone could point to. Just a man who didn't know how to be loved, and a woman who finally ran out of the energy to teach him. If that doesn't frighten you, it should. I'm 82 years old. I live alone in a house that's too big for one person. My kids call on Sundays. My grandchildren visit at Christmas. I have a good doctor and a decent garden, and a cat named Henry, who doesn't ask anything of me except breakfast. It's a fine life. I mean that. But there is a difference between a fine life and a full one. And I want you, whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from, I want you to understand something that took me 8 decades to learn. The walls you've built to protect yourself are the same walls keeping everything worth having out. That's it. That's the whole lesson. 40 years of thinking, and that's what I came back to. Every bit of hardness you're carrying right now, every reason you have for keeping people at arm's length, for swallowing what you feel, for telling yourself you'll open up when the time is right. It feels like wisdom. I know it does. It felt like wisdom to me, too. It isn't. It's just the first wound you ever got, still running the show. Ruth didn't leave because she stopped loving me. She left because she got tired of loving someone who wouldn't let her close enough to actually reach him. Don't be that person. Not because it's noble. Not because some old man on the internet told you to, but because one day you're going to be sitting in a quiet house with a cat and a garden and a phone that rings on Sundays. And you're going to think about the person who stood in your doorway, suitcase in hand, waiting for you to say something. And you're going to wish, with everything you have left, that you had just opened your mouth. Say what you feel, today, not tomorrow, not when things calm down, not when you feel more ready, now. Because here is the only thing I know for certain after 82 years on this earth. Nobody gets a Wednesday morning back.